personally experiencing it as a mom at Flexware, I think Flexware is very intentional. And Ashley, I've noticed this with you specifically. I mean, you welcome everyone. You go out of your way to make people feel welcome and warm and stuff. And I think it starts with the people. If you're intentional.
All right, I think it's time. So, welcome everybody. My name is Casey, and as you know, this is a new perspective. So, as you can see, we're doing things a little different today. So, this week is actually National Engineers Week. I don't know if you guys all knew that. Everybody in here knows that, right? Right? Blastering it around the office, right? So yeah, today what we're going to do is we are actually going to be interviewing these lovely ladies here. We have Sasha, Natalie, and Ashley, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves shortly. And we're just going to have a nice, chill conversation, just the ladies. It sounds so cheesy. But that's what we're going to do. So before we get started here, also wanted to thank Kitten Poofs. Thank you so much for the follow. We really appreciate that. Hope you're doing well today. But before we get started, I wanted to start off with a bit of a statistic. Not to make this boring, but so based on, or actually according to Harvard Business Review in 2016, less than 15% of women made up the engineering workforce. And I know that was 2016, so that's like a million years ago, right? And then another statistic that was done by Catalyst.org is they said, so despite accounting us women accounting for like around half of the employed U.S. workforce, so in the United States, we actually only make up 34% of those employed in STEM occupations, and that was in 2019. And also women with a bachelor's degree or with bachelor's degrees or higher actually largely contribute to this to that proportion, like making it up to 44% in STEM. Does that tell us much? I mean, I don't know. I thought it was just kind of interesting to see, since we're going to be talking about this type of thing today. And I'm just double checking chat to make sure sounds and everything are good, so I'm assuming it is. So why don't we go ahead and get started? If you guys, whoever wants to go first, you can. Why don't you introduce yourself, and then I'll introduce myself afterwards, just so since people already kind of know who I am. But why don't you introduce yourself, if you want to go over your background, or if you have any information that you'd want to say. How long have you been with Flexware, et cetera, et cetera. Why don't we start with that? Whoever would like to go.
I can go first.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, thank you, Casey, for hosting this. Very excited to be here. Thank you for everyone watching as well. My name is Natalie Roberts. I'm a process automation consultant here at Flexware. I work on the enterprise solutions team. And my background is in robotic process automation and digital process automation. We work primarily with Microsoft products, so the Power Platform is where my expertise is in.
Okay. Very cool.
Nice intro, Natalie.
I know, that was really good.
Yeah,
just
very
talked about
succinct.
how they're hard to do, and now you just did it perfectly.
Easy.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
But I'll jump in here and go next. So hi, I'm Ashley. I feel like it's a real privilege to be on this Twitch stream today, because I'm actually not an engineer. I just have the opportunity to work for an engineering company or a tech company. So little bit about my background. I have a degree in communication, also have minors in English and Spanish. So I'm one of those grammar nut. I really enjoy that sort of thing. And so the fact that I found myself working for a company that deals in the manufacturing industry, that's what I was looking for. I'm very passionate about like revising documents and editing. So I found a job where I get to do that here. I support all of our proposals in process and support our sales team, and just want to be here to represent someone who might not technically be technical, someone that doesn't have an engineering degree, but still works for an engineering company and has a lot of fun doing it. So one more thing I'll add, I've had the privilege of working with both Natalie and Sasha on projects here at Flexware. So that's a really neat part of my role working on our sales team. team, like helping develop sales processes and sales systems. So working with Natalie to build a special app for our sales team, and then also working
Nice.
with Sasha on some of our Power BI dashboards has been really neat, and I'm learning a lot through those interactions.
That's awesome. And just real quick, I wanted to thank Doodle Daddy. Thank you so much for the follow. We appreciate it. Sasha, do you want to go next?
Yeah, hi, Sasha Reisner. I've been at Flexware for 3 years now. I'm a BI solution architect on the business intelligence team. 25 years in this field doing programming, database development, .NET development, and now I've found my way in the Azure space. So again, Microsoft products following Natalie. Um, a bachelor's degree in computer technology. I went to Purdue. And then I went back to school and got a graduate certificate from IU. So,
Nice.
in health information systems architecture. Yeah. Thank you. Thank
Wow.
you. Welcome, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I can introduce myself. Like I said earlier, my name is Casey. I am a systems engineer on our Ignition team. So I basically, what is it that I do here? No, quoting Office Space. No. So what I do is I assist various manufacturing customers with support or troubleshooting or coming up with manufacturing like automation solutions for their businesses. In a nutshell. Sometimes I still wonder what I do. But and I've been with Flexware about a year and a half, little less than a year and a half, so fairly new. Um, yeah, I think that all sounds very good. Now that we're all introduced, I guess I could go ahead here. If you guys are ready, we could get started with the next question. So, what we just got? What is this? What's going on? Buff engineer. Thank you so much for the sub. Silly goose. We appreciate that. Thank you so much. Um, so, whoever wants to answer first, what made you want to do what you do now? Like, what sparked your interest to work in technology or with robotics or automation or healthcare systems or anything like that? Like, what made you want to do it? Maybe that's kind of vague,
I,
but
I can go first again.
yeah.
So, I mean, from the beginning of time, I've always been a tomboy. I always wanted to get my hands dirty, work with machinery, tools, things like that. Always wanting to get to the bottom of like, how does this work? And I think that's like a common theme with engineers. They want to know how things work so they can improve them and, make other things work,
Yeah.
right? So from the beginning of time, I've always just been interested in learning those different kinds of processes. And I was on a robotics team in high school, first FRC.
I
Yeah.
I volunteered with them.
Yeah, yeah. And so that was a great experience. I mean, it really enhanced like your knowledge of building things and creating relationships and working in different dynamics. There are groups of people that were doing the software development, and
Mhm.
I was usually doing the mechanical stuff. And initially, I wanted to go to college for mechanical engineering, and
Sure.
it was through robotics that actually taught me that maybe the software route is a better way to go as far as like job security and things like that. So it was a combination of, what sparks my interest, what
Mhm.
keeps me engaged. There's problems, solving these problems, coming up with neat solutions, or learning from others how they solve problems, right? And so and not only with that, I wanted to have a career, and so job security and finding out, how can I utilize these skills and interests and
Mhm.
also create a career path. And that's kind of what sparked, just going down this path and then ultimately ending up here at Flexware. But, the things that you learn along the way that help nurture what you want to do in the future, all of those
Mhm.
things together just kind of helped bring me to where I am today. So that's me.
Very cool. Anyone else?
Okay. Mine's kind of boring. When I was like 8 or something, somebody brought a computer over to our house, which were like kind of like gaming consoles a bit back in the day. And I really liked it. And I wanted one for Christmas, and I got one, and I taught myself how to program. So it kind of
Wow.
just set me on this course
Wow.
for to do it
You
in
taught
my
yourself how to program. That's awesome.
yeah. And yeah, I went to the library and checked out books. Like I'd ride my bike to the library
Oh
and
my
do this in my
gosh.
spare time, and then not talk to anybody about it because nobody understood it. And if I did, people were like, oh, weird, especially, yeah, especially then. So yeah, that it my of course my parents like encouraged me to keep that up because they saw the dollar signs in it, right?
Were your parents in like technical industry, that kind of background? No. Cool. That's cool that they encouraged you or supported that.
That's super cool.
Sasha, did you have anything else to add?
No, that's
Yep,
it.
all right, yeah. Well, I resonate with some of the things that you said, Natalie. So when I graduated from IU, so here I work with all these Purdue grads with engineering degrees, but I went to
Yep.
IU, um, and when I graduated from there, I got a job working for a staffing company. So
Oh,
what I
okay.
did is I would recruit, I'd source engineering candidates for different companies in all different industries, a lot of manufacturers, automotive manufacturers in Indiana. Um, and it was so interesting because I didn't know anything about what they were talking about, but getting to go out on plant floors, and it's kind of like that show, How It's Made. I'd see all these different products and how
Love
it was
that
made
show.
and the different machines. I got really into CNC machines. But
Nice.
so that was cool to talk to different engineers and interview them and learn about their expertise. And I gotta tell you, like everyone I would talk to, they're very passionate, kind of like Natalie, the way you were describing the mechanical aptitude or like what you were finding interesting. And so through that passion, I got interested, and it wasn't something that I always understood, but I liked asking questions, getting
Mhm.
curious, and having them share what they do on a daily basis. So fast forward, when I was working in staffing, I went and worked for an integrator. And so a
Oh.
systems integrator, they work with all different types of customers and
Mhm.
deploy different solutions. And so I got more of that variety working in sales for them. I enjoyed that and then ended up coming in working at Flexware, where again, every quote I see is talking about a different technology stack or a different type of process that the customer's trying to automate or
Mhm.
integrate with other systems. And so I love that variety and learning different things. I feel like Flexware does a really good job. We have lunch and learn, so I get to
Yeah.
hear about different projects and yeah,
That's really cool.
yeah, that's why I'm in manufacturing and tech. It's interesting stuff.
For sure. No, okay, I don't know. I don't think I can top any of that. So, oh, but before I go on, if everybody would like to hydrate, kitten poofs redeem to hydrate. You don't have to, but
Yeah,
I'm
cheers.
going to. So we appreciate that because let me tell you, I am drying out like a sponge right now. It's getting hot in this office. But
Well,
thank you so
Casey,
much.
actually,
Yeah.
what sparked your interest? I mean, why, how did you end up here? And yeah, I mean, you're remote, so you're not
I
even in the
am.
same state as Flexware. So,
I'm not.
that's a cool story too.
Yeah. So I actually started going to well, before I even got to college. I initially was going to go there for aviation. Completely different. And I changed my mind just based on eyesight and et cetera, et cetera. Won't go into those details right now. Um, and so then and I was an accounting major, and I just could not get past one of the mid to upper courses. It was rough, and I eventually decided, you know what? I think it's time for me to switch majors because this is not going to happen. And that's okay. That's what I mean. College, there's certain courses that help weed people out. Obviously, you want the best or whatever, and that's okay. Like that, I couldn't get through it. It was rough, but I learned a lot from it still. So I actually changed. Yeah, I changed my major to information systems, which I mean technically is still just business administration with a focus in. But the reason I selected it was actually because there weren't really any women in it.
Hmm.
In my class, like my graduating class, or just specifically to my major, there were like 6 people. It was
Wow.
very small. And I knew that I would have a range of things that I could do. And I know I'm kind of like going a little off tangent here, and that's just kind of what I do. So hold on for a sec. And so I knew that I would learn. I learned like networking. I mean, literally everything there was to learn. Cybersecurity. Not. I mean, not like extreme, like I am an expert at it, but enough to like get you out the door
Sure.
and start
Yeah.
having a real job. So networking that, I had to take a couple of programming courses, and what else did I do? SQL stuff. I believe those were like the four areas, and most people would just kind of like go into that. And so yeah, I thought, wow, there's hardly anyone in this. The job placement was dang near 100% because it was so small, and
Mhm.
I was one of the only women. And I'm like, hey, that makes me better. Not that it made me better, but it made me different from everyone else that was in the course.
Yeah.
So I did Dynamics GP support, um, technical support. I've done all of that, and then I randomly had applied and got a job with Marvin Windows, which is where I know John from, and Mike. And so I worked for Marvin for just about 6 years. And so I'm like, I kind of want to, stay in this realm. And so here I am. After John reached out, I'm here now. And that's a very long way around me telling you that, but that's how I got here. And so basically, you get to a point in your career where it's like you kind of have to keep doing what you're doing, or you have to start over.
Mhm.
And not that I wanted to start over, obviously, but I'm like, I want to get better at what I'm doing. So that's how I kind of got to Flexware. Does that?
Yeah.
I'm not good at
No,
answering
that's great.
questions. I'm not. It's rough, but
Oh, this is great.
good. Yeah. So, I guess if I could ask, since we were kind of talking about schooling and stuff like that, and if not everybody has anything to answer for this, that's totally fine. But was there anything like in your college experience or anything like outside of high school that was challenging? Like, was there anything like was there ever a time you had uncertainty, like this is what I should be doing, this is the path I should be going down? I know it's a tough, they're tough questions. Does anyone?
Well, looking at these questions over here too, like
Yeah.
tell us about your first job experience kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, my first job that sparked my interest specifically with RPA and
Mhm.
DPA work was at CNO Financial Group, and I was an intern there. And my internship was actually extended an additional 5 or 6 months past the summertime because of the work I was doing. It was needed, and I was catching on. I learned the tool on the job, and it was so intuitive. It was like I had found this is what I want to do. It was
Yeah.
a wake up moment. And so, when they said we can extend your internship, I was just ecstatic. It was something that
Wow.
I'm thinking, okay, wow, I can really, this is something that is used in industry. This is something that's needed. This is something that excites me. It's something I want to get up and do every day. And it's always changing, kind of like Ashley, how you were saying, like there's such a
Mhm.
variety of all these things working together. And, the interest just never stopped. So for me, that it wasn't like a challenge, but that was like my wake up moment
Sure.
outside of, a traditional sense of school or even, my real first job. I was an intern and I was like, this is what, and you can't go to school for it. So, I'm like, well, I'm in school, I need to
Mhm.
finish, and, maybe these classes that I'm taking don't really line up with what I've figured out that I want to do.
Mhm.
So it was interesting, but it was definitely getting that first chance at trying something new, and that's what sparked my passion for this.
Nice. Does anyone else have anything to add? I don't know.
I I what I'm thinking of when you ask that question, I
Yeah.
feel like it's like flashback to my first couple weeks in this role at Flexware, just
Mhm.
because I was learning so much about our different teams. Like I had been exposed to a lot of the automation layer or like level 0 or 1 in the
Yeah.
ISA 95 model. So some of that like plant floor systems, not so much of the BI and ES space that both
Sure.
Natalie and Sash are in. Or you, Casey, I as well. I know you touched those spaces. So that was just new to me. And I remember being like fairly overwhelmed by all that there was to learn. But I can think of specifically the person I was working with, and they wrote like a 35-page proposal, and I went through and like just offered a bunch of suggestions, and I hate like patting myself on the back here. That's what it feels like. But they were like, wow, all of your suggestions, I never would have thought of approaching it that way. And um, yeah, just they were commenting on the value that I added by reviewing their quote. And
Yeah,
so here I'm telling myself a story that I'm not qualified or I don't have the background. I can't speak into this. But at the same time, they were acknowledging like what I was bringing to the table. So
for sure.
I'm still probably not over that. Kind of, I don't know if it's imposter syndrome or how you want to label it, but just that I think it's
Mhm.
easy to create a story in your head of like, am I supposed to be here in this? Like, should I be? But through just like learning and getting curious and getting good feedback occasionally, I feel like I've got some of that validation of I may not know everything you're talking about, but I can add some value in this area. So
Yeah.
it's a constant learning of that.
Well, I mean, for sure. And like proposal wise, like if those are projects, say, if it's something that I might end up working on, I mean, even though you're not specific, like directly like an engineer, if you want to put those in quotes, you're still doing stuff that that affects. It could make or break. I mean, someone could see this and be like, I'm not gonna go for that proposal. Like it's like bleh. But if you're making things better, you're still like drastically affecting like the work that many of us do. You know,
Mhm.
which is a huge deal. So you might need a bigger desk for your ego, is what I'm getting at, right? I know I sure do.
Yeah.
No, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
um,
Yep. Well, and I feel
yeah,
like this topic of like engineering, we're kind of talking about that, but
yeah,
there's so many people like job title wise. I don't
yeah.
know. You guys probably have a lot more
Mm,
that you could list off, but there's just a lot of people that work in this tech or STEM industry that
yeah,
aren't quote unquote engineers.
Hmm.
They have
yeah,
different titles, and that's not even touching on like how you need HR and marketing and sales and all these
hmm,
other facets of a business. So it's interesting all the different
yeah.
job titles and back like educational programs you can go through to end up in these spaces.
Right. And I know we actually talked about this right the other day when we were prepping for this. Is that like technically, like sure, I have engineer in my title, but I don't necessarily like. I don't think of myself as like an engineer, right? Because it's a title. I'm doing very similar. Well, not consult. I didn't do consulting work at my last job, but same similar things, but like completely different. It's just interesting to like think of that and just how you could have this job A here and job B somewhere else, same exact job, but one is like labeled like that, and like
Hmm.
what makes it different than the other. It's the stuff that keeps me up at night, like thinking about it.
The unstandard job titles in IT. There's a
Oh,
gamut.
there is.
You have to read the job description to really understand like what they're
Yeah,
asking for because the title can be completely different than what they actually are needing.
exactly. I mean, and I've even seen where some companies let you like you have your actual like official title, but then I'm doing a lot of air quotes today. My hands are gonna get tired. But so you have your actual official title, and then you can just make your own title. Like I am the support wizard extraordinaire
Chief
level
fun
3,
operator.
or like master, like supreme, like awesome person. I don't know. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that, but where people make their own. I think it's interesting.
Well, I
Yes, I've
was
seen a chief fun officer. I like that CFO.
There you go.
I
Sorry,
was
Natalie, what
thinking
were you
about,
saying?
oh no, no, you're fine. I was thinking about the statistics you were sharing earlier, and I was
Yes.
wondering how many of them just looked at the title of engineer. Maybe
Yeah.
they didn't consider, I think the last one you shared, you said STEM fields which is a lot more
Yep.
broad, but like you said, you have engineer in your title. I don't consider myself an engineer. But I have consultant on the end of my name, and then other,
Yeah.
there's software engineers, and
Yep.
then, there's so many different
So
ways
many
that you
different
can
ones.
spin this. And so, yeah, I was wondering if the statistics account for, people really doing engineering work, or if it's just, looking simply at that
I
title.
I don't recall off the top of my head, though I know I did look at it, where I know that statistic-wise, I know we're close around 15% of women making up the workforce. I actually might have said it wrong when I said it, so I apologize.
No, you're fine.
The 2016 was 13%. It's increased slightly.
Yeah.
And that's on the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Real exciting stuff
Okay.
here. But
Right.
Data's exciting.
it
Data's
is.
exciting. I work with data all day long.
It is. And I did do like, Control F, wanted to see, and there are like 4 different areas. And I believe
Okay.
I looked at the one. So they have it categorized as like architecture and engineering occupations, which would obviously be like, civil or architectural, stuff like that. I'm not an
Yeah.
engineering expert. But there's also like, you have aerospace, agriculture, this. So, I mean, I believe they might be averaging most of it. I could certainly put this in the chat if anybody ever wanted to look at it. It's from 2022, technically, these statistics. And also, before I forget, I have 2 things. I'm going to put that in chat in case anyone wants some light reading before bed. Derek wanted to know, this is a ways back here, but Sasha, what was your first programming language?
Basic.
Basic,
On
okay.
a Commodore 64C. So it was basic. Like we're looking at a command prompt.
Yeah. I was about to say.
Okay.
Go to line 10. Like, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Hey, that's really cool though, and I meant to ask that a while ago, but I don't want to like interrupt. And Derek says that's awesome. We also had somebody. It was a first-time chat. I'm gonna call them GR. They said, and I believe it's, in my honest opinion, manufacturing solutions has been a male-dominated field. It's warming to know you ladies are changing that dynamic. And so,
Thank you.
that was a little bit ago, and I did kind of respond. I responded to it, but wanted to make sure that we pointed that out. So that might help us segue. I know I'm like all over the place, but that might help us segue here just shortly. Once I make sure that we are done and I get my notes back up, because I don't have everything memorized, which I should. But we'll answer that here after we touch on this. So I know a couple of you guys had answered with the. I'm just double checking my reading here. With like any challenging parts of college or this or that, and experiencing uncertainty. I guess I could say that, like, for myself, I definitely had some challenges in college, just in one of my classes specifically, where it was because I was one of the only females. Made it much more difficult, and the professor was very
Sexist? No.
sexist. I know, I was trying to think of like what word to use. Yeah, and
I'm not sure. I was putting words in your mouth.
Nope, that's exactly what it was, and he was not nice, and it was very like, you could tell it's like, what, you're a woman, why are you here? And the thing is, he wasn't that much older than I was, I don't believe, that as far as I could tell. So that was difficult. I ended up just dropping that class completely and begged for something else to do, and that I refused to go into that class again, because I was being refused help on problems and this and just all these things, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. And instead I got to do an internship to make up for it, so that was good, because that's learning experience.
That is good.
And so that would be like one of my challenges. I didn't have a challenge finding anything really after college, finding a job, but that's definitely can be a challenge for people, for sure. And then as for like the uncertainty, I know I'm like going back to like answer this for myself. I don't believe that I ever had it once I finally picked major and stuck with it. I just knew technology's not going to go anywhere. So, as far as I'm aware, at least for my lifetime, so that I would be good to go. So I didn't really have a whole lot of uncertainty. I mean, you have days where you wake up and you're like, why do I do that, I certainly had that, but it wasn't too bad. Okay, now that I got that out of the way. How is everyone doing so far? Are we having a good time?
Oh yeah, this is great.
Hopefully it's not too bad. We're being very candid here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Oh,
was going to ask you though,
mm-hmm.
Casey, we were talking about what kind of advice would you give to your younger
Mm,
self or other
yeah.
women? What if a college student came to you and they said, hey, I'm being treated really badly in my class. What would you say to them? Would you tell them
Get
do
them.
what I did? Or would you tell them, you're right, knock them out.
Yeah.
Would you tell them go to your advisor? Did you have steps in place where you could have gone to someone and said, hey, this is an issue? Did you have a safe place you could go
Mm-hmm.
to? Was that an option? What kind of advice would you say for somebody in that kind of a situation? Because I'm sure it still happens.
Oh, I'm sure it does. For anyone. Um,
Right.
so I had got kind of close with the dean of the College of Business at the time, and as I had was graduating, I talked to him every once in a while. I'd see him, say hi, whatever. Um, when I was my last year when I was graduating, I remember I saw him and I had said, gosh, I just wish, I had problem A. I had a couple different things, but specifically that one, and just because I ended up doing a late withdrawal from the course and they denied it, so I technically
Sure.
failed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which sucks, but you know what?
Right.
I'm okay admitting that. I failed the class because I didn't want to do it.
We've all been there. Oh, maybe not Sasha and Ashley.
No,
I
and
I definitely have.
it was only because it was a late withdrawal, and I gave them all my reasons, and they still denied it. They could have
Yeah.
approved it, and we're not
Wow.
going to go into those details, and that's
Sure,
fine.
sure.
I've moved on. That was a long time ago. No one cares anymore. But I guess if I could give myself or another, like not myself, but like if I could give someone the advice, hey, they're going through that, speak up. Don't be afraid to say something. Maybe not to that specific professor or teacher or instructor or whomever they may be, but go above them if you can. Like if they are not willing to work with you, you could go to the dean. You could go
Mhm.
to whomever is high enough up that they could take that complaint and make something happen out of it, because
Yeah.
nobody should feel like worthless in a class when you're paying to
Exactly.
be there. Dude, I was paying your
Yeah.
salary. Hello.
Yeah, it's true.
Like,
Well, and I don't know if this is where your head goes. You kind of alluded to it just there, but like, I
yeah.
wouldn't want someone else to go through that. Like, I don't want
Yeah,
the next woman that signs up for that class
exactly.
to get the same. And so it's
Yeah.
almost like we're looking out for the next person, and it's
Mhm.
Mm,
trying to help the
yeah.
next level.
Yeah. I mean, you just, I just want it to be cool for everyone else. And so hopefully that
Yeah.
never happens again.
You're
Hopefully that does
right.
not happen to someone. But if they do again, don't be afraid to talk to someone and have those people be put in their place, because that's what they need.
Mhm.
They don't deserve to be
Good,
teaching.
good question, Natalie. I like how you
Yeah.
threw that back to Casey.
that was very good. So I don't think we kind of touched on this, maybe just a little bit. Let me double check. We don't have any questions. We don't. Okay, we are good. And if you don't want to answer, this is totally fine. But your first job, like outside of college, did you learn anything there that you could not have learned, like in school? And I know this isn't specific
Everything.
to everything. I know this isn't
I'm
specific
not
to your
joking.
current job, but like, or if you want to talk about like, yeah, what your first job was, or like for me, it was technically an internship. Do you want to touch on that, Natalie? Like, just
Yeah, I
anything?
mean, it's so hard to learn I mean, a cooking class, for example, you cook in the
Yeah.
class. You're doing the stuff, you're doing the
Mhm.
things. In a classroom, when you're just sitting there absorbing information, for anyone, I don't
Mhm.
think you can't just be, right? You
No,
can't
you
just
can't.
do it just because you go to the classroom. Communicating, I owned my own cleaning business for a couple years
Oh
when I was
wow.
still trying to figure out college and what career path I wanted to go down. I learned business communication. I learned how to talk to multiple different groups of people.
Mhm.
I couldn't learn that in a classroom. You also can't
Yeah.
learn when you mess up and you have to own it and you have to take accountability. I had employees and one of them didn't show up. So it's like, okay, I have to take accountability for that. It's on me. You can't learn that in a classroom besides getting an F, right? You get an F and, what does
Yeah.
that really teach you? If you're okay
Nothing.
with the F, then it doesn't teach you anything.
Right.
But when you have somebody in your face and you're communicating with them and they're not happy with you, you have to grow in that situation.
Mhm.
So for me, a lot of it was outside of college working with multiple different groups of people,
Mm-hmm.
struggling, figuring out what I liked, um, and the hands-on learning, especially with coding and programming. I mean, I've learned so much here at Flexware, and the amount of expertise that's been
Mm-hmm.
shown to me is incredible. And it just helps you learn. And you can't get that in a classroom, especially when, it's online too. It's very
Yep.
redundant and boring, and you don't get that interaction, you don't get that practice. So for me, it's really been everything outside of the classroom has
Mm-hmm.
taught me a lot of what has, been used in my career.
Yeah, for sure. That's yeah.
Yeah.
Was that the same
This,
for
this,
Sasha or for Ashley? Was it similar experiences for you guys? Oh,
No, it
oh,
wasn't for me. No,
okay.
like 'cause, at Purdue, like we did hands-on labs, we had programming labs, we did database development, like we did a
Mm-hmm.
lot of that. The things that I learned were moving to DC. Like that was my first job. I was a software engineer outside of college and moving to
Okay.
DC, and then September 11th happened and I realized how important family was, so I moved back. So I learned things that weren't technology based, and I think that's kind of what I've come to a resolution over these years is to tell my younger self that technology is the easy part, it's people.
Mm-hmm.
uh, and the most confident person in the room isn't always the most competent, neither is the most loudest person in the room. And
True.
that's a challenge when you're a woman sometimes.
Yeah.
Ashley, yes.
Amen. Oh, very well said, Sasha.
Yeah, that was for sure. Ashley, do you
Well,
have
and
anything to add?
Uh, yeah, I feel like my first job out of college was so great for teaching me. I
Mm-hmm.
guess I wasn't in a sorority. Maybe I would have learned this if I would have gone that path in college. But um, I learned the importance of networking and mentorship. Like, oh my gosh, they forced it down on us. And so I was partnered with both a male and a female mentor. And just getting feedback and building a relationship with them, like having someone that I could trust and go to. Gosh, I like repeat so many Jasonisms to my team now, like things that I learned from those mentors. And so I was one of the questions or the comments in the thread about having us somewhat like represent or trying to change
Yeah.
the representation of women in this field, like
Mm-hmm.
it's so important and sometimes it's lacking in our industry to see women in leadership. And so if you can kind of grasp onto someone and
Yeah.
learn from them and be intentional and ask for feedback, that I learned that from that first job, and I've been really rewarded here at Flexware by being intentional and trying to build those relationships and get advice from people about my career.
Very nice. Yeah. For me, I mean, obviously, I also had like some hands-on stuff with my the programming labs and database stuff. So similar to Sasha. I know it's different, but um, there's only so much you can do like in school, right? It's not at all what it is like in the real world, um, which is kind of like it's kind of a shock, right? I mean, maybe not a shock like you finally get a job. It's like you're not gonna explode, but it's just completely different. Like you learn like the basics of as much as you can do, but actually dealing with actual people and actual customers can be a little scary. Like when it's your first time doing it, right? Um, and for me, it was I remember my internship, just where I felt like they expected me to know more than I actually knew. I'm straight out of college. That's what it is. Um, so I don't know. And that was my internship doing that, and then when I worked for a Microsoft vendor doing Dynamics GP was I guess technically more so my first real job if I don't count the internship. But again, that was just you learn a lot of stuff and you learn it quickly. You have to keep up with everyone. But for sure, like what Ashley said, the mentorship and like working with people, I think that's like extremely important. And definitely, if you can have it and you can do it, definitely do it.
Yeah, I just find it's like I need someone that I can go to and
Yeah.
get vulnerable with and like talk about my goals and
Mhm.
where I'm struggling, what I'm trying to where I'm trying to improve, that sort of thing, and have someone that knows that about me and then can provide feedback. And I know it's coming from a good place and
Yeah.
I'm very receptive of it. And then it's exciting to go share with them when something good happens, or
Exactly.
yeah, when you see the results of the work that you've been putting in. So it's kind of like you have a little cheerleader or someone in your corner.
Hmm.
Sometimes you need that, or at least I do.
No, for sure.
I think that's one of the advantages of kind of being a woman is that we kind of I don't know if you say win a conversation, but we communicate by connecting. And I think
Hmm.
that, that's what we're doing today is connecting with each other and maybe other women out there, or even men out there, right?
Yeah.
About what it is to be a woman in technology.
Yeah.
And in contrast, in a lot of conversational styles that you'll have with like a male, they're more of the person that wins the conversation is the one that talks the loudest or the longest, so it's less about connecting and it's more about winning, whereas we can kind of, I don't know, it becomes more fluid, a little bit more personable.
Hmm.
And that's where we can really bring that with customers and working in engineering, bring that personal touch.
Definitely. And that kind of helps me segue into what is it like to be a woman in this industry or to be in tech, to be in engineering or anything like that. So hopefully it's not redundant to what you just said, but does anyone have anything they'd like to say or add to this, just what it's like, or if you feel like your gender gives you a different perspective, again, kind of what Sasha was just saying, but just versus our male, etc. counterparts.
It's kind of a hard question because we
Yeah.
only know what it is like to be a woman in
Mhm.
engineering, the good and the bad. We
Yeah.
don't know what the other coin is. We can see it
Mhm.
sometimes, we experience it sometimes, but it's a loaded question. I mean,
Mhm.
a lot of it's amazing. It's wonderful. You meet new people, and
Mhm.
Sasha, I was gonna say, I really appreciate our relationship. We're both fives on the Enneagram. We connect really well, and for me, that's really exciting because I've met someone in my career who I can relate to, who understands me when I say something.
Yeah.
She can finish my sentences in if in that kind of way, right? And so, right,
I was waiting
and
for it to
and
happen. No.
Ashley's been there through the whole thing. So, but I mean that's the good about it, right?
Yeah.
And then, I wouldn't say it's necessarily the bad is associated with, men. That's not the case.
Of
It's that
course.
they're just different experiences.
Mhm.
And like Sasha said, when you make a connection with somebody, you're coming to them out of that connection. You're coming to them to their expertise out of, you know, curiosity, and
Mhm.
it's like a gentle, sort of coaching, like how Ashley was saying, it's mentorship. Whereas, if you can't make that kind of a relationship with a man or with another leader, there have been
Mhm.
women leaders who I do not connect with well at all.
Mhm.
And, it's character, it's personality, and so some of it, it's not always just because you're a woman.
Right.
Some of it's just because you think differently and you
Mhm.
don't know how other people receive your information. And I often have to look at, what's the intent behind somebody's message so that I don't off the bat get offended or irritated and think,
Mhm.
is it because I'm a woman? Is it because they don't respect me? I try to take a step back and think, okay, where are they coming from? Maybe this is different for them. Maybe they've never had a woman on their team.
Yeah.
It so the good comes with the bad, but overall, it's a great place to be. You
Yeah.
you are making a difference. We can see from those statistics women are choosing these jobs more.
Mhm.
And I think, Ashley, I don't know if it was today or before, but you said something when, a company has all these different versions of thought and how people solution things, it makes you a really great company because you're
Mhm.
well-rounded. So, that's just kind of my take on being a woman in this industry.
Okay.
I've seen it. It's really been evolving over the past years, decades, gosh, that I've been in this field. And it's definitely better today than when I started. Um,
Okay.
there's been a lot of talking about these kind of things and education about, unconscious bias kind of thing. People don't, like you're saying with intent, Natalie, people don't intend to hurt anybody's feelings, but sometimes they're just not thinking, or they haven't ever thought about it that way. So by bringing to light some of the, conversations or talking and saying, maybe we need to talk about that or something,
Yeah.
that is helping, definitely helping with a lot of the environment. There's challenges that come out of this. Initially it was don't complain about it, but it's not complaining. You know, if you're going to try to get some kind of action out of it, if you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to like, connect with the other person, because you don't, at the alternative, you don't want to be labeled like a bitter old woman, right? Because that we can get that one, and there's
Yeah.
also a stereotype. So
Yep.
you have to communicate it, but do it in a way that's, kind of kind.
Mm-hmm.
Women supporting each other, that's been a huge one that I've seen with more women entering the workplace. There's more
Yeah.
willing to support each other. We're not competition, we're all trying to help each other succeed. And everybody needs support regardless of where they are in their career.
Yeah.
It should, yeah.
It's true. Can always learn something, right?
Yeah, I know when I first started, I spent a lot of time trying to prove myself, going above and beyond and
Mm-hmm.
going that extra mile to try to prove that, I'm just as good as my male counterparts. And, it, I wouldn't say it was a lost cause. I got
Yeah.
a lot of recognition for it. It was also kind of exhausting, because
Yeah.
you're trying even harder and then you realize, what, like, why?
Yep.
Why am I working so hard to prove to somebody who may not even ever realize it, because
Yep.
maybe that's just not the way they think.
For sure.
So there's also, the poor girl kind of thing. Like when I first started, it's like whenever a girl needs help, it's like, oh, the poor girl needs help, instead
Mm.
of maybe, oh, it's a noob and they need to be taught, like putting their arm around their shoulder, inviting them out for beers. Like women like beer too, right?
Speaking of beer, there's an
It's
event
about that
tonight.
time.
No, there's an event tonight. If Derek, if you want to put that in, put the
Yes.
events thing. Oh, Kitten
Yeah,
has
I
something to
was a
say
little
here.
nervous before this, so I'm looking forward to the beers with engineers after this.
Well, I won't be able to attend, but for those of if there is anyone here in the chat that is down in the Fishers area, there is an event tonight. It's at Top Golf, right?
Hmm.
Yep, Top
It's
Golf and
free.
Fishers.
It's free. There you go.
Yep,
Yep, it's beers with engineers. You can go play golf. Are there snacks?
there are
There are
snacks.
snacks.
Of course, there's that's the
I've
most
never been able to
important
go.
part.
Never been able to go, but I hope to be able to go there someday. Derek confirmed that
Yep.
there are snacks. So yeah, definitely click on that link if you're interested. Who would say no to free food, and you can network. And just before I forget here, so Kitten put something in chat here. So let's see, they said women in STEM leave their careers for other options twice as often as women in other careers, and more than men in STEM. Have there ever been? Well, let's see, has there ever been an instance where you felt like you wanted to change your career, whether by personal choice or issues with sexism, work culture, etc.?
Personally, no,
Mm-hmm.
but I know other women who have, and I know other women who have had the hardest time climbing the ladder, getting raises, asking for basic things. One of my friends, they're working at a company whose last hire was over 10 years ago. And her request was to be
Wow.
able to work remotely. She is phenomenal at her job. They don't want to lose her. And she had to call their corporate office above the person at their office to ask if this was a possibility. And she told her, thank you for calling me. This has been a problem for years. And she's like, so
Wow.
I'll call them and talk to them. And she was working from home today. And it's just amazing to me
Wow.
that you have to go through so many hoops when, the question,
Mm-hmm.
are you competent enough to work at home? Are you reliable? You can do your job? Great. That should be it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I personally have not experienced that.
Okay.
But, I know other women who have, had to go and jump through hoops and have been discouraged because they don't feel like they're up to par. And
Yeah.
and sometimes that's just the case, unfortunately.
Yeah, I can
Mm-hmm.
not at Flexware, but I've had the experience unfortunately where it's just not a very like inclusive environment. And like to give you an easy example, it's like we're going to go celebrate someone's promotion, but we're going to do it at happy hour time when the only mom in the office has to pick her kid up. And so it's just like being
Mm-hmm.
mindful of if you want to include that person, do it over the lunch hour or do it when everyone can join.
Right.
Yeah, just being mindful of like what people have in their schedules if it is a working mom. Um, I think it's easy for it, it may not be with like malintent, but if a company's just used to having men on their staff
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of like a traditional family model where like the woman in the household is at home and they're just used to like it's okay if we
Yeah.
do a happy hour in the evening or um
Right.
yeah as we hire people with different backgrounds and different life
Mm-hmm.
experiences we have to be mindful of including them so that everyone grows and everyone can be a part of that
Exactly.
networking experience.
Exactly. And then I might have something to add to that, but I'll check with Sasha here first. If you have anything to.
Oh, I love that comment because yeah, there's been so many events that I'd missed out on, like basically no networking. Being a mom, um, not
That
able
is
to
rough.
go. Where did I want to? It's like family work. I think I'll choose family. Like
Right.
every
You're like, family too. No,
every
work only.
time, I choose my kids. So
Right. And I mean, obviously,
um,
to add that, of course, there are men and etc. Other people out there that I also have to go, pick up kids and stuff too. But I think stereotypically, you would assume it's probably the mom, right, who's doing that.
Hmm.
And are there how do you guys feel about like the stereotypes with women working? Um, I know Natalie, you might have something possibly to add on this.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, yeah, I turned my camera off briefly. I had to go get my son. He woke up from his nap.
Mm-hmm.
But personally experiencing it as a mom at Flexware, I think Flexware is very intentional. And Ashley, I've noticed this with you specifically. I mean, you welcome everyone. You go out of your way to make people feel welcome and warm and stuff. And I think it starts with the people. If you're
Mm-hmm.
intentional about creating that culture,
Yep.
then you're not going to feel as distant. You're not going to feel like it's impossible for you to fit in. And
Mm-hmm.
so, even though I typically work remotely, I don't feel like, if I was to go into the office, people are going to smile, they're going to say hi, they know my name. It's
Yep.
warm and welcoming. Um, but there have been times, when I'm on a phone call and I'll say, hey guys, just, full disclosure, if you hear this really annoying Elmo song in the background, it's because my toddler
Oh no.
needs to be like distracted. And, I tell them, sometimes I have, my calendar blocked off for times when I know I'll just be home with him. And I want to make sure that I can, talk to my customers, give them my full attention. And so, Flexware with understanding that and saying, we can work around your schedule, or, we don't have to know that you're picking up your son right now,
Yep.
or, and in that sense, I actually kind of feel like maybe a woman does have an advantage in the workforce because they're more lenient. They expect you to be more,
Yeah.
caregiving and that type of mom role. And so I feel like maybe I've been shown some more grace there than maybe a male would. I don't know. I have no idea. Um, but I feel like people kind of come with that expectation. Oh, you're a working mom. They
Yep.
immediately they soften. They're like, oh, and just like with you
Sure.
guys, Derek and Casey, you guys were like, oh, if you have a toddler running in the background, no
Yep.
problem.
Which
It's
Derek is
received
hiding right
well.
now. We never told
Right.
anyone he's hiding. You can't see him, but he's there.
So,
It
and
yeah.
so it's hand in hand.
Sure.
I've had a very positive experience, and I think a lot of that I speak to Flexware's culture. At other companies, I don't know that it would be as welcoming and as understanding. But for me personally, this is one of the reasons why I
Yeah.
work here. I appreciate that family dynamic.
Which is awesome, and I guess if you think about it, I mean, how long ago was it even where women just it was taboo? You shouldn't work. You
Right.
should be staying at home. You should be doing
Yeah,
mother things. I mean, I don't have any kids. I have a dog. That counts.
that
Uh,
counts. Counts.
that counts. But just that, like, oh, why are you working? Like, oh, you should be staying at home and cooking
Mhm.
dinner. And there are men that do that. I
Yeah.
mean, or
Yeah,
other
my
people.
husband, he loves to cook dinner. I mean, he loves to
Go.
take care of the house. He loves to be around with my son. He likes to
Yeah.
be that point of contact, and that's what works in our relationship. It's a great
Sure.
dynamic. We love that. And I think it's great to be able to embrace that kind of lifestyle because it's what works for us. It's what
Mm-hmm.
keeps us healthy, and that
Definitely.
might not look the same for another family, and that's okay,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Everyone's completely different. Um, I guess let's see here. I know we're coming up on time, which is probably because I was blabbing on most of the time. But no.
No.
So let's see if we have any. Maybe are you guys okay if I ask maybe one more question? Is
Sure.
that's okay? I don't want to take.
Yeah.
And if anyone has to go, that's totally fine.
I mean,
Um.
you're cutting into my beers with engineers, but I'll stick
Oh
around.
no. Okay, I'm hurrying.
No, I'm totally kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Uh, oh my goodness. Okay. So let's see. We could do like maybe like an advice thing, which I know we kind of mentioned it earlier. It or we kind of talked about it earlier, but if you could give either another woman or a minority besides like men, I'd like to say, if you could give them any advice if they're interested in engineering or tech, what would it be? Or if you could give your younger self advice. I know. Like, do you guys have any advice for either other people, or if you could go back in time and see yourself and tell yourself, don't
Yeah.
cut your hair like that. That's what I would do.
Thanks. Um,
Don't cut it all off.
yeah, have you heard the idea of like fake it to make it? Like just you gotta
Absolutely.
at a certain point
Yeah.
like get out of your head and quit telling yourself that you're not capable or that you don't belong in the room or that there's no one else that looks like me in this room. I'm the only woman here. Just if you
Yeah.
could kind of put that aside and just challenge yourself to be yourself. Sorry. But challenge yourself to be authentic. And why I say that is I'm so thankful that I just kept looking for a way to find like how do I find a job where I edit papers for a living? How do I find a job where I can use my attention to grammar and writing? I
Mm-hmm.
loved all my extensive writing classes in college, and I didn't want to go work for a newspaper or something like that.
Yeah.
And I ended up here, and I'm just so glad that I kept looking and kept trying to get creative. And I was actually bold. I went to a coffee meeting with our recruiter here at Flexware and said, "Here's my resume. Like, how can I come work for you guys? Do you have any
Nice.
openings?" So it was me
Mhm.
olive branching, trying to figure out a way for
Yeah.
me to use my skills and what I enjoyed. And so I would just encourage people like it's easy to create that story that you're not qualified or you don't
Mm-hmm.
belong in that for me personally,
Oh,
going to
I
IU and
struggle. I
having a
struggle as well. I didn't go to IU, but
yeah, yeah,
I
yes,
struggle
yep.
with that.
So that's
Being worthy,
my
or
advice. Yep.
I'm as smart as I actually am, or stuff like that. So I like
hmm
that. Does
But
anyone else?
we all have value to add. Sorry.
No, no, you were just fine, and I appreciate that input. Natalie or Sasha, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, you can do it. Just as
Yeah,
simple as that. You can. And
definitely.
it's not to say that it will be easy,
Mm-hmm.
but things that you enjoy and to get to that point that you can enjoy it, it's going to be hard, but you can do it. And like with Ashley, she reached out.
Yeah.
And I live by this and I say just ask because I cannot tell you how many times I have just asked a question and it has saved me thousands on car repairs and it has saved me
Mm-hmm.
money that my husband wanted to go spend. Um, but I'm serious. If that coupon's expired, whatever, just ask. That they can tell you no. You're no worse off than you were before,
You don't
right?
know unless you try,
So
right?
just ask.
Mm-hmm.
Just ask. You can do it.
That's beautiful. And yeah, I agree. That's basically what I'd say. If I could go back, just stick with it. It'll be worth it in the end. Like, just do it. Don't give up. Don't let other people push you around. Don't let them push you down just because you're different. If it's gender or anything, just stick with it. Do you have anything else, Sasha?
I think you guys are
Yeah, I
nailing
know.
it here. I think
I
this
know.
is great.
I know. Like,
Yeah,
how do
I
I
think
add
it's
to
great
this?
advice. Stand up for yourself,
Yeah. Yep.
that can be a tough one, especially when you see, some people in the room can be overly confident and you're just like, am I right? Then you start questioning yourself.
Hmm.
But yeah,
There you
you
go.
think
That made me
something,
think.
just stand up for it. Like if you think something, at least say it, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't say anything, you'll never know
Hmm.
what somebody could think or what their opinion could be, or maybe you could save someone time. But definitely, I guess one more thing would be for if I could go back to myself, would be the confidence, because I lack that. And just, like Ashley said, fake it, even, not that I need to fake it, but just be confident, because you're there, and it could be anyone, but it's you, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
Awesome.
beautiful, beautiful.
It does help when you have like a community though, like when you
It
have people
does.
you can lean on and you can
Hmm.
share experience with. So um, I'm grateful to, this was a nerve-wracking experience for me to join this, but having you all here to help me through it, and I had a lot of confidence going into it because of the relationships I have with you guys all. So that's testament to that.
Good. I mean, oh, and Derek says, don't ask, don't get. Exactly. But no, I agree. Obviously, it would be completely different if I had never talked to any of you guys before, ever.
Hmm.
Which obviously I don't talk to Natalie a lot or Sash a lot, but I talked to Ashley more, just in my world. But maybe that can change. I would love to talk to people more for sure. Well, that's about the end, unless anyone has anything else they would like to add. No? I think it's time for Beers for Engineers with Derek. If you want to put events in the chat. Also, there's a contest going on through Flexware. If you guys haven't done that, do it. Exclamation point contest. And that's tell me you're an engineer
Tell
without
me
telling
you're
me you're an
in,
engineer?
yeah.
Yeah. You can win a
I
Raspberry
think it's
Pi.
open until Thursday.
Yes.
There is a timeline on there, so
I
check
believe
that out.
yeah, I think if it works, I have it on there, I believe, the time that it ends. And you also, if you do win, you also get $500 to put towards your, nonprofit of your choice, which is pretty cool.
Hmm.
So yeah, I guess if that is everything, you guys have to hear me talk a little longer. But we just want to thank everybody for coming by, for hanging out, for lurking in chat. We really appreciate it. We've had a lot of great questions. GR loved hearing our viewpoints. They want to hear more conversations like this. Dwayne said the same thing. That was very insightful. Uh, Derek agreed we should do more conversations like this. I had a great time. I hope everybody, my guests here, had a
Me
great
too.
time, and that everybody in chat had a great time. And yeah, that's about all I have. If you're not following us, be sure to follow us. Want to thank you guys again, and yeah, our next
That's a
stream
new
is
perspective.
that's a new perspective. Yeah, and our next stream is at the end of March, which I believe it's on the 30th, unless I don't know how to read a calendar. But we'll talk about that on our LinkedIn page. So
You do know how to read calendar.
Yeah.
Get
I'm
that
like,
comment.
I was doing this so
There
fast
you
the
go.
other day. Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much, and
Thanks.
we'll talk to you guys later.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.